All right, and I think we'll get started. Good morning and afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today and participating in another session in our adaptation webinar series. Since the beginning of May, we've been partnering with nonprofit professionals as well as industry experts like Luke to be able to best equip you with the practical tools you need to not only survive, but thrive in our new normal. I'm Samantha Lego, Keela's Marketing Director, and I will be the moderator for today's session. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping rules. The first is that this session will be about 60 minutes in length, including a 10 to 15 minute Q&A session at the end. We encourage you to ask questions in the Q&A or chat box throughout the presentation, and then we'll get to them once the presentation is finished. Today's session is also being recorded, and you will receive the recording along with the slide deck by about the end of the week. Other than that, I am pleased to announce that we have Luke Bailey joining us today. Luke is a marketing copywriter at Unbounce, which is a world-leading company that helps you easily create custom landing pages with no coding required. As an experienced copywriter, Luke helps Unbounce users think more strategically and create copy that converts. Today, he will be leading a session on how to build a nonprofit landing page that drives action, helping nonprofits understand what ingredients you need to make your campaign a successful one. Thanks so much for joining us today, Luke. We're very lucky to have you here, and I'll pass it off to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Samantha. I'm just going to switch over the slide here. Hopefully that is showing up okay for everyone on your screens. Good morning, everyone. Right off the top, I just want to acknowledge that this feels like a very strange week to be doing a webinar. If you're following the news, I just want to say that I fully support the Black Lives Matter movement and the protests happening around the world. And I just want to express solidarity for everyone who is fighting for police reform and against racism and injustice. Nonprofits are playing such an important role in this movement, and I hope that some of what I talk about today will be in some way useful to this cause and others like it going forward. If you're looking to support some nonprofits, I know that Black Visions Collective is a very key player in this cause, as well as the Atlanta Solidarity Fund. So consider that moving forward. But that being said, today we're going to be talking a little bit about why focus matters when it comes to your nonprofit website and landing pages. So let's jump in. So here's what we're going to be talking about today. First, we're going to cover a little bit about why focus matters, as I said, when it comes to your website and your landing pages. Then we're going to talk about how you can apply the focus of a landing page to your own campaign pages, donation pages, and home pages. I have some real examples that I'm going to show you about some of the work we did with a nonprofit called Peace Geeks. So you'll get to kind of get some insights from the work Unbounce has done for nonprofits. And then we'll end off with a Q&A. So if you have any questions as you go, you can drop them in the Zoom channel, as Samantha mentioned. And we'll get to those at the end. Sounds good. But first, a little bit about me. For those of you who don't know, my name is Luke Bailey. I'm a copywriter at Unbounce. That's a picture of me in Japan last year. Remember when we could travel? Those were the days. I work on a lot of different types of marketing campaigns here, including some for nonprofits, which we'll talk about a little bit more about later. But if you've never heard of Unbounce, Unbounce is a drag and drop landing page platform for marketers. It helps you quickly and easily create and optimize pages that drive your visitors into taking action, no development required. I also want to mention that right now with COVID-19 upending a lot of industries, we know that these are challenging times for nonprofit marketers. So if you're a nonprofit marketer and you sign up for Unbounce before August 31st, you will get 3 months free as a special promo, no strings attached. So that's 3 months free if you sign up before August 31st. Just had to get that in before we get into the presentation. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. Why focus matters. So to start out, I want to talk about why focus specifically matters when it comes to your online marketing and why this is especially true for nonprofits right now. And here's really the big reason why. On average, only about 1% of visitors who visit a nonprofit website end up making a donation. So I just want to hit that point home. That's just 1%. You probably already know that, or maybe you suspected that, but this is something that makes it really, really tough for nonprofit marketers to drive meaningful action on their websites. So you can imagine that if you're driving traffic with ads, that means you're paying 99 people to go to your website for every one that actually ends up donating. And according to the benchmark study from M&R this year, that rate is even lower when it comes to organic traffic. It sits around, I think, 0.17%. So whether you're driving traffic through ads or through organic traffic, not a lot of that is ending up converting into actual donations that support your nonprofit organization. And that's what I want to try to help you with today. If we can boost that number by even 1 percentage point, you'll essentially be doubling your website donations, all with your existing website traffic. I'm not talking about driving new people to your website to donate. I'm talking about the people who are currently going to your website and getting more of those people to take action. And how you can do that is through this power of focus. So why is the conversion rate so low on nonprofit websites? I picked out an example here from the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation website. I didn't mean to pick on them specifically. This is very similar to a lot of nonprofit homepages that you'll see. And it looks pretty good, right? I mean, I think it looks pretty good. There's a nice big photo, smiling people. We've got a powerful headline. It's a nice design, looks very slick. But as you can see, there are a lot of things for you to do when you land on this page. So you've got this big raise awareness button for their most recent campaign that they're running. And there's nothing wrong with that, of course. If that's what's most important to their organization right now, that's where they want to direct traffic, cool, that's what that button is for. But then you've also got these other 2 buttons down below. You've got the blog and the news buttons. So already, if you're a visitor landing on this homepage, you're hit with 3 separate paths for where you might want to go. But really, there's actually so much more. You've got the About Us page up at the top. You've got information pages. You've got Facebook, YouTube, social media channels, the latest research. You've got ways to get involved. There's just so much for me to check out as a visitor that it's seriously distracting people away from the one thing that you probably want visitors to do the most, which is donate. It's just one path of dozens that you can take from this page. And if this is the most important goal for your organization, or if it's the thing that you're hoping most people will do when they land on your website, it might be time for you to seriously rethink the way you're marketing. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to lead people down different paths from your homepage. We all have to do it. If you go to the Unbounce homepage right now, you'll notice that we have a lot of links going to different places. That's totally normal. That's what you need to do on a homepage because that's what people expect to see on a homepage. But I think what this illustrates is that why that conversion rate on nonprofit websites is only 1%, or why the rate of people who go from a nonprofit homepage to the actual donation page and follow through with the donation is only 1%. It's just not a very clear path. And this brings us to kind of a metaphor that we like to use here at Unbounce, which is that websites are a lot like Brand Central Station. Not Grand Central Station, Brand Central Station. So there's lots of traffic going into different places. There's lots of places to go, which means there's lots and lots of distraction. And that all kind of relates back to this marketing concept called attention ratio, which is really just this ratio of things that a prospect can do on any given page to the number of things that you want them to do. So I'll repeat that. It's the ratio of things that people can do versus the things that they want them to actually do on a page. In marketing, the best marketing campaigns have a 1-to-1 attention ratio, which means that you're giving them a very focused experience. They go to a page that only has one thing you want them to do on it, no distractions. And so we can take this concept of attention ratio and apply it to different campaign pages, donation pages, home pages. You might not be able to get down to 1-to-1 attention ratio, but there are opportunities to better your attention ratio. And I'm going to go over some of those in a little bit. And this is where landing pages actually can be a huge benefit. And I just want to back up a little bit for those of you who maybe haven't heard of landing pages, or maybe you heard of them, you just need a refresher about what they are. Landing pages, in really simple terms, are just standalone web pages. They're created specifically for a marketing or advertising campaign. So I've put here on the slide deck 2 examples from nonprofits, the Canadian Red Cross and College Board, and both of these were actually built using Unbounce. Nonprofits use Unbounce to build landing pages like this all the time because they are focused campaigns that really drive more conversions than a typical blog post or website would. And you can notice how they have these beautiful on-brand designs, and they can be linked directly to your domain, so it looks like people are just on another page of your website. But what's different is that it doesn't have a ton of things to do. There's no headers, there's no footers. There's only one thing for people to do on these pages. On the Red Cross page, you can see there's just big donate now buttons to get people to donate. And on the College Board page, it's asking people to register now to sign up for a course in the future. So by focusing down the attention ratio, you can really significantly improve your conversion rates. And here I have a quote from our co-founder, Ollie Gardner, and he always says this: when attention ratio goes down, conversion rates go up. It's really that simple. And that's the #1 reason you want to make sure you're using landing pages, or at least landing pages best practices. So you might be wondering then, though, what is a good conversion rate? Because if nonprofit websites are only converting at 1%, how do landing pages perform? Like, how do you know if you're getting a good conversion rate? And how do you know if your pages are driving an appropriate amount of action? Well, it's actually funny you should ask about that, because our data team just finished up a huge research project where they analyzed over 30,000 landing pages and something like 19 million conversions, I think. And the finished project is this 2020 conversion benchmark report, which I'll send out in the link after this presentation. But you can also find it by just Googling 2020 conversion benchmark report. So what we did is we used machine learning and AI insights to identify trends and patterns across 16 different industries. And I'd encourage you to check it out if you're at all interested in data like this. I'm not really a numbers guy, I'm more of a words guy, I'm a copywriter. But some of the stuff inside was, I thought, really fascinating. And our team did a great job of like distilling down the data and figuring out like why it matters to you, the marketer, and like what actionable insights you can take away. So that being said, here are some of the insights we found about nonprofit landing pages, or at least here's the most important one. In the conversion benchmark report, we discovered that the median conversion rate for a nonprofit landing page is 4.2%. And that's median, which is apparently a better benchmark to use than average. I said I'm not a numbers guy, and this is proof of that. I don't really understand the difference between median and average. I think median's like the middle number versus average is like if you take all of them. So I think median, it just is a better benchmark because it doesn't take into account those like really extreme outliers who are at the very top and at the very bottom. So the median is 4.2%, and the average I think is actually even higher than that. And that's a huge difference from the 1% conversion rate that most nonprofit websites are seeing. And I think it really illustrates well why focus matters. So you can see on the left, we've got cystic fibrosis. Only 1% of the people there are actually clicking that donate button and following through with the donation. On the Canadian Red Cross page, you'd be getting more like a 4.2% conversion rate of people clicking that donate now button. I also want to point out that this conversion rate is higher than the overall baseline. What that means is those are those other 16, 15 other industries that we analyzed for the report. So that includes landing pages for tech and e-commerce. Nonprofit actually performs better than the overall baseline of those other industries, which means to me that nonprofit visitors are actually more likely to donate on a landing page than they are to buy something on a web page. So people actually want to donate, and when you focus visitors on just that one thing that you want them to do, you can get them to take action. So with all that being said, let's take a look at what this actually looks like with some examples and how we can apply some of the learnings and best practices from this report to your campaign pages, your home pages, and your donation pages. Because you might not have actual landing pages that you want to use, we can still apply some of these best practices to these other parts of your website. But starting out, I want to talk about campaign landing pages, because this is the most common use case we see for landing pages with nonprofits. If you're running a special campaign to raise awareness or donations, to solicit donations, instead of having this on your blog or another page of your website, you can design a specific landing page that will convert that much better. It'll be that 4.2% median conversion rate. So I want to take a look at a real example and some best practices you can take away for your own campaign pages. So recently our Unbounce team donated 2 full days of work with a local Vancouver nonprofit called Peace Geeks. I actually missed out on a lot of these photos, but I think in that top left one around the back, you can kind of see me. You might have to squint, but I'm there, I promise. We had these 2 days where we worked very closely with the Peace Geeks team, and it was this super cool collaboration between our two organizations. If you haven't heard of Peace Geeks, they're this organization that does work both here in Canada and abroad to help bring tech skills and platforms to people in need. So we spent 2 days with their team, and we really tried to bring the Unbounce conversion expertise to their pages. And the first thing we started with was their campaign that they run every year called Give It Up for Peace. And so the idea behind this campaign is that during the month of October, you can give up something like soda or Netflix and raise money for Peace Geeks to support your efforts. So it's kind of like Lent, I guess, mixed with Movember or something like that. And so I've captured here on this slide before and after. So this is what their hero section looked like of their old landing page for the campaign, I believe last year, or perhaps it was the year before that. And then the new one that we designed for their upcoming campaign this year. And so we've been talking a lot about why focus matters on the design of your page and how you can reduce attention ratio on your landing pages. But I think this example, what I really want to highlight is that the focus of your copy matters a lot too. And maybe this is just coming from me being a copywriter, but this is the thing that I notice most about this particular section of the page. If you read these two examples, you'll notice a shift in focus from we versus you. So on the left side, if you read the paragraph, you'll notice how many times the words we gets used, we. So we are very excited, we challenge you. It's very us focused. It's focused on Peace Geeks and what they're doing, which I think is naturally how people tend to write. You want to kind of explain things from your perspective, but what we've found is that this also tends to drive fewer conversions because people care about themselves more than anything else, right? They want to see what they're doing and why what they're doing matters. So you can see on the right side in the after, we really shifted the focus to a you focus. So for instance, your one thing could mean someone's everything, your participation, the funds you contribute. This is one of the biggest copy optimizations you can make on your landing pages. More so than even design, copy matters so much to the conversion rate of your landing pages. So if you can make this shift in not only your copy, just in your mindset, so that you're thinking about your audience first and what they want to do and what they want to see on the page to make them feel like they are making a difference, that can mean huge things for your conversion rate. So let's look at the full landing page now. Here we go. So our goal for this page was really to tell a more compelling story with a more focused content hierarchy and visual identity. And what do I mean by that? Content hierarchy is literally just the way your content is laid out on the page in a very organized way. And at Unbounce, we break this down and make sure that every part of the page is serving a very specific purpose. So if you go through this page, literally from top to bottom, you can see that we've organized it in a way that kind of makes sense from almost a storytelling perspective. So you've got this top section that really explains what the challenge is. Underneath then, we have a large section talking about why you should donate. So we've got more information about the where the money goes and more information about why your support matters. And then as you scroll down, we have some social proof. So we have other people who have contributed, we have a testimonial, we have partner logos. All of that is mixed in to help build that trust for people so that they are more likely to join the challenge. And yeah, going back to the beginning of this presentation, you'll notice that there's only really one thing for people to do on this page. There's no header, there's no footer, it's just join the challenge. We highlight that call to action throughout the page, but the focused content hierarchy means that you arrive naturally at a place where even if you scroll through to the very end of the page, you arrive very naturally at this place where you're like, yeah, I do want to join the challenge, and you're more likely to click that button. So we have opportunities for you to join the challenge throughout the page, but you should arrive at the end point of wanting to join that challenge regardless. So the other thing I want to point out is that you might notice how, although this page looks quite long, there's actually not a ton of copy. And we tried to keep the wordy sections as short as we could, because shorter in most cases is actually better, according to the data anyways. So here are a few more stats from the 2020 conversion benchmark report. You'll notice on that graph on the left that as reading ease goes up on the nonprofit landing pages, so does the conversion rate, which means that the simpler you can make the language that you're using on your landing pages, the better that people will respond to it, and the more likely they will be to actually take action on your landing page. And when I say try to write simpler, I don't mean you have to like go back to your Bridge to Terabithia, your Babysitter's Club books and like try to like look for notes on how they were writing in middle school. It's not exactly like that. What that really means is that you should try to use less words in each sentence and less syllables in each word. So I'll repeat that: less words in each sentence and less syllables in each word. You want to try to write in a simple kind of, in a simple way that people talk, basically. So you don't want to, this is kind of like where my job comes in as a copywriter. Often people, when they give you a first draft of something, they try to make it sound as fancy as possible because they're trying to jazz it up. You really want to kind of avoid that if you can. Just try to write the way you speak. So cut out words like utilize and just say use. And just try to write things in the way that, you would say if you were trying to communicate this to your friends or your family members. That's the best way to write the landing page in most cases. So you'll see here from the 2 slides, for nonprofits specifically, simpler language is really a boon, more so than some of the other kind of support treatment centers and family support categories that we were comparing it to. And then also that they use less words generally in most than other landing pages in the industry. So less words and simpler words whenever possible is usually working in your favor. Of course, this isn't always the case, but in most cases, this tends to work. I'm going to keep going here. So we've been talking a lot about why focus matters when it comes to design, and I talked a little bit about why you can change the focus from we to you matters in your copy, but I also want to highlight why focus matters when it comes to your messaging and your positioning. And I thought this was a really interesting story that came out of our work with Peace Geeks, because when we first started talking to them about this campaign, we were finding it really hard to connect their message with something tangible. So their message is something along the lines of empower peace builders with life-changing digital tools, which is a very aspirational, kind of broad statement. And we were finding that hard to find something tangible and figure out, where are these donations actually going? And what does that actually mean for the people who are donating? And so we literally sat down with them and we asked them those questions. What does this mean? Where does the money you raise go in this campaign? And so this might be something that you find with your own content marketing or your own landing pages, is that it's hard to sometimes dig down into the specific details of why something matters or what tangibly you're doing with the money that is going. But Peace Geeks then told us about this really cool app that they developed called Arrival Advisor. And this was their latest project to help connect refugees and new Canadians with essential services through this app that they developed, which is so cool. So we really changed the focus of this landing page and the messaging of this campaign to reflect that. We wanted to really clearly spell out, this is where your donations are going. So you can feel good about donating because this is the kind of cause that you are going to be supporting. With COVID-19 and everything going on in the world right now, people are so conscious about, how much they're giving to charities and nonprofits and like where their money is going. And so my recommendation is really to always try to focus your messaging and positioning to be clear about why their help matters on your landing pages and why their help matters to your organization and why their help matters in a more broad sense as well. And then here are some more best practices you should keep in mind for your landing pages. I'm not going to go into too much detail on these just because if you ever want to find these out, you can always Google landing page best practices and a bunch of these will come up. But I will just briefly touch on some of them. If you're using ads to drive traffic, you want to ensure that your landing page matches your ads. The closer you can get the headline to your page, the headline of your page to the headline of the ad, the better chance you'll have of that connecting with people and them then following through to convert. Keeping the action above the fold, people decide usually in the first few seconds if they want to keep reading a page. So you want to try to get their attention fast and explain really clearly to them what you want them to do and how you're able to help them. Directional cues, so these would be things like arrows, using consistent colors on your call to actions, using white space in a really smart way. These are all good things to do. No navigation, again, we've talked about this. So get rid of those headers, get rid of those footers. You don't need them. You just want to focus people on what needs to be done on that page. Social proof, we already talked a little bit about this, but it is so key on your landing pages, especially these standalone pages where people aren't clicking around on your website and getting a chance to see all the different types of work you do. Include testimonials, include logos of partner organizations, include statistics or dollars raised. All of these are great trust signals that people look for before taking action on a nonprofit landing page. Copy, we've already talked about. I won't go into more detail there. But mobile devices, I think this is an interesting one because I believe the latest studies have shown that most donations are still taking place on desktops. But obviously every year, more and more people are using smartphones. And so you want to make sure that you're optimizing all of your pages for mobile devices and to make that experience seamless for people who are, trying to donate from their cell phone in bed or whatever. Page speed, this is something that most people just completely overlook or it seems too technical to address, but there are easy ways that you can speed up your page so it loads faster. And it's important to do because there's some stat, I think it's 37% of visitors bounce when your site takes 5 seconds to load. So you're already losing almost like half of the people if your site is taking a long time to actually load for them. So you want to make sure that it's loading fast by reducing image sizes, optimizing your page in all sorts of different ways. You can, again, Google some information on that if you're looking for ways to optimize for page speed. And then finally, always be testing and optimizing. You want to try different headlines and photos to see what works best. Landing page platforms make it really easy to test different designs and copy, but whatever you're using, you want to just try to iterate and see how you can improve your conversion rate by trying out a different headline or trying out a different hero image or trying out a different call to action button and see which one visitors respond to, because every organization is different and every organization will have different best practices that apply to them. So if you want more info on these, as I said, you can Google landing page best practices. I'll include a link perhaps after this with the slide deck so you can get more info on these. But if you do all of these things, or if you even do some of these things, you're much more likely to convert even higher than that median 4.2%. And so I would encourage you to really try to do these things. Now I just want to talk about donation pages because these are so important as well. And even though they're not technically landing pages, we can apply many of the same best practices to your donation pages as well. Most people who click through to your donation page don't actually end up donating. The latest research that I found on this has it around 21%. And anecdotally, I've heard that many nonprofits are seeing like 90 to 95% of visitors bouncing away without completing the form. So there's obviously some sort of disconnect here that could be very valuable to fix. And I want to explore some of the different ways that we can look at fixing that. Here's what we did with Peace Geeks. Their original page looked a little something like this on the left side. Essentially just a really really long form. And our goal here was to reduce friction as much as possible and make this form as easy to fill out as possible so that people aren't bouncing away once they land on this part of the site. They're actually wanting to carry through and complete their donation. So you want to make things preemptively as easy as possible to avoid any confusion, any frustration that visitors might find when they're filling out this form, because any little bit of, oh, this is so annoying, or, oh, I don't really understand what they want from me here, that can lead to someone leaving, and that could be money that is not going to support your organization. So when you're optimizing a form, the first step you should always try to do is look for any fields, any form fields, or any questions that you're asking that you can cut, anything that you can do without. Try to make your form as short as possible because in general, shorter forms tend to convert better. It's not always the case, but in general, the shorter your form is, the more people will actually fill it out. In this case, there wasn't actually much that we could cut out due to what info they needed to collect for tax reasons. And I suspect this is true for a lot of nonprofit organizations out there. So instead, what we focused on was making it a better user experience for the visitors who were filling out these forms. So here's what the new version of the donation page looks like. We added a lot more context on the left side of the screen to show where donations are going. Our research showed that having these reminders on the page helped to reduce the bounce rate because people were being reminded, oh no, I don't want to fill out this form, but look at all this good it's going to do when you do. So those reminders really help to improve the conversion rate. And then we also broke up the form into more manageable sections. It's still the same number of fields, but it's a bit better organized, which helps reduce the cognitive load of the visitor who doesn't have to take in all that information at the same time. They're able to kind of compartmentalize and see, oh, okay, I just have to choose my donation. Oh, I can choose the donation amount that I want. Oh, and then I enter my information. Oh, and then I enter my payment information. By separating these out into sections, you can make it seem like a step-by-step process versus just hitting everyone all at once with all of these form fields. So that's the approach we took. And then here are some additional form optimizations we would recommend at Unbounce. We already talked about the first two, but the other thing that I want to mention is that you should also use multi-step forms wherever you can. These tend to convert better because visitors aren't faced with, like I said, a million fields all at once. You can start them off with something easy, like just their name and the amount they want to donate, for instance. This can really get people, it kind of gives them momentum, right? They've already filled in a few pieces of information, and then once they click that next button to get to the next step of the form, they feel like they're already committed, right? They're already like halfway through, even if they still have to get to all the hard, juicy bits like filling out their address and all that stuff. So multi-step forms, if you have the capabilities and if you're able to use them, they do tend to convert better, and we would recommend using them where you can. Autofill and smart default options are also great optimizations that you can make to your forms. Again, these are just ways to make it easier for visitors to fill in their info. So like, you know, having the address automatically populate when they get down to that field, chef's kiss. That's like what you want on a form, right? It is basically doing the work for them so that they don't have to, and it gives them no excuse to then bounce away from this page. And finally, as I mentioned before, with mobile devices on the rise and being increasingly part of the way we operate in the world, you want to make sure that you're optimizing for mobile devices as well. Most forms these days have that kind of capability built in, whichever kind of form technology you're using. So that shouldn't be a problem, but make sure that the whole page as a whole is also responsive and able to be completed on mobile devices. So that's donation pages. And that brings us back to the homepage, which I kind of secretly think is the most interesting part of this whole thing. And not just because this is the part that I was working on with Peace Geeks. I just think it's so fascinating that you can apply some of these best practices that we're talking about to homepages as well. Just because traditionally homepages, you know, they look like this, right? So let's talk about some of the ways you can apply the best practices from landing pages that we've been talking about. Like reducing the attention ratio, to a nonprofit homepage. So this is what the homepage for Peace Geeks looked like when we first started working with them. You'll notice that there are a lot of different paths and distractions to take. I actually had to cut off this screenshot, but it keeps going down, believe me. And each of these blue and gray blocks is a link out to another part of another project or another blog post or another video that they've been working on. And you can see it really acts as that sort of brand central station hub approach to a website where it's kind of plopping all the information here for visitors who land on this page and saying like, hey, find what you're looking for and like go there, right? You can just use this page as a hub and click away to whatever you're interested in. So unlike a landing page, you can't really force visitors to take one path here because as much as I would want it to be like a landing page and have that same conversion rate of a landing page, your website is doing so much more, right? It is brand central station and you do need to serve a lot of different purposes with this page. It has to do a lot of different things. So while we can't focus them on one goal and strip out the header, strip out the footer, and just like have them donate now on the page, what we can do is strongly encourage visitors in one direction using that same storytelling approach that we were talking about before. So that's exactly what we did. This is the approach that we decided to take after reviewing the analytics on the page. So what we found is that a lot of people were navigating to this homepage of Peace Geeks. They would scroll down, they would kind of scroll up, and then they would click on the About Us page, or the About Us link in the top navigation, which we found very interesting. So that's not common in our experience that people navigate directly to an About Us page from the homepage, and we thought that was a kind of a curious thing. And so the thinking was that people were going to this homepage and not getting a clear understanding of what Peace Geeks did. And so they would scroll down, scroll up, they'd be like, I don't get it. And then they'd click on the About Us page and they'd kind of read more about the mission of Peace Geeks and what they do. So we reimagined this page to, rather than have it act as sort of a hub to all of the different projects and things that they're working on, we decided to focus it on their main goals, which were really to get more donations and get more volunteers, and try to really clearly explain, what they do on the page so that people weren't having to click around in order to get that information. So on the after side, you can see what that kind of looks like in practice. And I know it might be kind of hard to read, but you'll notice that we greatly reduced the number of options and focused visitor attention on those main goals that Peace Geeks has, which is to donate. And then if we go through, I can give you a bit more information about some of the different aspects of this page. I won't go into too much detail just because we are running a bit low on time here, but we restructured this page to really make it kind of crystal clear about what kind of the mission of Peace Geeks is and why you should donate. So the top part of this page now explains who they are. So we really focused on who in that top section with their mission statement, and then a brief description of what Peace Geeks is all about. As we scroll down though, you have this what section. So it's what they do. So these are the links to their major projects at the moment. We wanted to keep some of those in there because it is important for people to be able to explore, all the different projects and things that Peace Geeks is working on. And then as you scroll down, we included this key section that they were completely missing on their old homepage, which is why you should help. So this is where we included a testimonial to really give a human connection that shows their results. And then we also included some stats below to explain kind of more about why their work matters and why your support matters. And then finally, we end off with this section about how you can help. So that's our main call to action, which is to donate or to volunteer. And so this storytelling approach, it really takes us, I kind of want to emphasize it's like the who, the what, the why, and the how. And by going through those stages, we're kind of taking people on a natural kind of story of Peace Geeks, right? It's explaining, who they are, what they're all about, why you should help, and how you can help. Although we were kind of limited in what design changes we were able to make to the page. But you'll notice how we used the color orange as a consistent way to show the most important call to action on the page, which is to donate. So it pops up there in the header, it pops up there in the hero image, and then it pops up again at the end. We only use orange in those specific instances so that your eye is automatically drawn to those call to actions as the most important thing that we want you to do on the page. So that's a few things about this. I could go into more detail here, but as I said, I think we're running a bit low on time, so I'm just gonna keep rolling through. I challenge you to think about your own homepage in this way too. So what is the main goal you want for visitors who land there? How can you better drive them towards it? Your website, it'll probably never convert as well as a dedicated landing page, but that's totally okay. It's brand central station, as we talked about earlier. It's got to be serving a lot of different purposes for a lot of different people. However, by focusing visitor attention towards the goals you want them to take, the most important goals for your organization, you can drive visitors to take action on your website too. So this shows the before and after approach that we took with Peace Geeks. And take some time today or later this week or next week and brainstorm how you can apply some of these same principles to your own homepage, or whether that makes sense for your own homepage, because it's not going to be right for everyone, but this can be a great way to increase action on that homepage. So to keep things actionable for you, I just want to say that the main thing I want to stress is that it's important for your pages to stay focused. So that's within your design, within your copy, and within everything else. Whether that's a campaign landing page, your donation page, or your homepage, focus can really help you drive more conversions. And by applying these best practices of landing pages, you can convert more of your traffic into visitors who take action. That's about it for me today. Before I go, if you're looking to build landing pages fast, I've also got to mention again that Unbounce can really help you do it. I know this is a difficult time for a lot of organizations right now, and COVID-19 has really changed things for a lot of nonprofit marketers. So that's why Unbounce is offering any nonprofit marketer who works for a nonprofit organization 3 months absolutely free. There's no strings. You just have to sign up before August 31st and indicate you work for a nonprofit, and you'll get 3 months free. You can drag and drop pages together. You can publish them to your website. You can do whatever you need to do. And so if you're interested, Unbounce makes it way faster, easier to build, launch, and optimize landing pages for your nonprofit. Yeah, I think that's about it for me. If you have any questions, I'm happy to chat about them now. The Zoom channel, I believe, is open. So Samantha, yeah, I think that's about it.
Great, thank you so much, Luke. That was excellent. We do have a few questions that have come in the chat. The first one is from anonymous attendee. In general, nonprofit websites have numerous goals, including education and advocacy, which makes the 1% conversion rate statistic meaningless. How do these landing pages compare to traditional donation pages where users are typically landing as part of a fundraising or other marketing campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great point, is that nonprofit websites are actually, as I said, they're kind of that brand central station approach where they are having to accomplish a lot of different things, including raising awareness for different initiatives and things like that. I would argue that that statistic isn't meaningless. I would say that it is kind of one of those things. If you are driving visitors to your website with that purpose, then you are kind of potentially missing out on those conversions. So I would say that while, it is great to drive traffic directly to a dedicated landing page wherever you can. But the reality is that most nonprofit websites are still, or most nonprofits are still driving most of their traffic to their website. And so if you are looking for a way to potentially increase donations, especially during these times, you should be looking at ways to optimize your website for those kind of audience flows as well. You should be looking for ways to optimize those paths for visitors on landing pages, on donation pages, on your website as well.
Thanks so much, Luke. The second question then is a follow-up. What was this new Peace Geeks page tested? I'm assuming back at the beginning of the presentation. And what was the lift over their previous donation form?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so we are still in conversation with Peace Geeks. As I said, this all came out of a 2-day slam with Peace Geeks. And so we are in conversation with them this year to get more results. They tend to drive traffic more towards the end of the year when they are running their large campaigns, like the Give It Up for Peace campaign. And so there isn't enough statistical kind of significance as of yet to really show what the results of these optimizations have been so far. That being said, early indicators are looking good. We have seen some more things like, more people clicking through and things like that. But it's just a bit early to be looking at results. In terms of testing, again, we had only 2 days to be working on these pages. And so to best utilize, see, I got myself, to best use our own time, we really focused on just creating one version of the page that they could put into practice right away. We didn't have enough time to create multiple variants, but of course that would be the next kind of logical step in this approach, which is to create a few different variations of these pages, try out different headlines, try out different designs, and see how they convert compared to the originals.
Thanks. We'll roll into the next one then. This one's from Karen Hopper. How well do these landing pages typically rank in search? We have a ton of content that ranks really well, but is also structured really poorly for conversions. Is there a balance between these conversion-focused pages and providing the content that ranks well in Google?
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting to note. And I would say that in general, most landing pages aren't built with SEO in mind. At least here at Unbounce, when we tend to create landing pages, we don't hope to drive SEO traffic directly to those landing pages. What we do instead is we pair our landing pages with a content marketing piece, so like a blog post or something like that, that is meant to attract those SEO kind of results, I guess. And so that would be kind of my recommendation, because most SEO is, or a lot of it anyways, is it's geared towards kind of long form content. And as we mentioned, with landing pages, especially nonprofit landing pages, typically shorter tends to convert better. And so you don't naturally get that SEO hook in there unless, you know, you might get lucky with, depending on what the topic is and depending what your subject matter is, you might get lucky with a great SEO play. But in general, the approach we take here at Unbounce is you pair the landing page, which is not optimized for SEO, or well, it's still optimized for SEO, but it's not kind of, that's not what you're relying on to drive traffic towards. You pair it with a content marketing piece that is meant to drive SEO traffic, that then links to that campaign landing page. I hope that answers your question.
Fantastic. Thanks, Luke. The next question, also from Karen Hopper. What qualifies as a family nonprofit, and what's the typical call to action on those pages? Is it people searching for services, or is it donation or advocacy focus?
That's a great question. And I don't have a firm answer for you, but Karen, I know I'm in conversation with you outside of this webinar, so I can follow up with our team on the conversion benchmark report, who actually ran the analysis on this, and get a bit more information. I was curious about that too, why we made the distinction for family nonprofit. I believe they're kind of using that, I think they just were grouping it in with family services as a full industry. And so that's why they used family as that kind of qualifier. But to my understanding, this was including just nonprofits in general. Again, I will verify this with our team and get back to you. And I will follow up with you too, Samantha, with that information as well.
Thank you. And honestly, Karen, we love all your questions. Don't worry, keep them coming, because the next one's also from Karen. For the mobile version of the new page, was there a conscious choice to push the content below the form? We might need a clarification on which page it was.
I believe she's talking about the donation page. And yes, there was a conscious decision there on the mobile page. Again, the most important thing for people to be doing on that page is to actually fill out the form. And so we have the form kind of first on the mobile version of the page, because as they're scrolling, you know, once they click through to that donation page, what's the first thing you're looking for? You're not looking for all this information about why it's important to donate. You're looking for the form to donate. For those people who are kind of on the fence, or they start to scroll and they're like, oh no, this form is way too long, right? They start scrolling on their mobile device. That's when we kind of then back up that information with more reasons why you should be donating and why that money matters to the cause.
Great, thank you. For most nonprofits, the next question, a very small percentage see the homepage during their first visit. Are there other things you'd recommend for higher traffic content pages?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
For most nonprofits, a very small percentage see the homepage during their visit. Are there other things you'd recommend for higher traffic content pages?
Higher traffic content pages. I think if I'm understanding this question correctly, they're saying that the homepage is not really where people are navigating a lot of the time. They're going directly to maybe a campaign page or to a blog post or something like that. And if that's the case, you should be looking at those entry points of your website or wherever it is, and essentially looking at those and how you can optimize those pages using the same kind of best practices we've been talking about. So just because I've been focused on kind of the website homepage here, doesn't mean that some of this information can't apply to, say, a long form article or a campaign page or something like that. So again, try to look for ways to reduce that attention ratio. Try to look for ways to really optimize your pages with these kind of best practices in mind. And you can kind of take some of these best practices and apply them to those high traffic pages as well.
Thanks for your insight. We've got one last question from Karen. What nonprofit CRMs are supported by Unbounce?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. So I had two examples earlier on, which were College Board and Canadian Red Cross. In addition to that, we, as Unbouncers, we also support a number of nonprofits here locally in Vancouver and across Canada as well. We're involved in the BC Tech Association, as well as things like TechPong and things like that. we try to broadly support nonprofits as best we can, kind of across the board. And we're looking for more opportunities actually to showcase nonprofit work on our website. So if you are a nonprofit marketer who is on this webinar right now, I would love to speak more with you about opportunities to showcase your work and how you've been using Unbounce to drive more conversions on your pages, because yeah, we'd love to support nonprofit marketers and to help them drive more action on their pages.
Thank you so much for that answer. Karen has a slight clarification on that. Although it's great that you support nonprofits and we appreciate you. I think she was referring to their technology, so their CRM versus the actual nonprofit themselves. They're having problems hooking up APIs. It takes a lot to get them up and running. So she was wondering if there is any insight you had into that.
Yeah, I don't have any insight off the top of my head, but Karen, I can follow up with you after this call to maybe get some more insight into what other connections Unbounce has with other nonprofit software, because I believe there are a number of them. I know we connect with Zapier, I can never pronounce it properly. So there are a ton of different connections and things like that that we can do to really help elevate your marketing.
All right, well, thank you so much, Karen. Don't worry, we love all the questions. Does anyone else have any other questions before we end the session off? If that's the case, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Luke. I know I learned a lot myself. Just before we sign off here, I'm going to share my screen. So I want to remind you that our next session will be tomorrow at 12 noon PST or 3 p.m. EST. The session will be led by Keela's own Peter Cragen. Will he be presenting a session titled Best Practices with Keela, Data-Driven Fundraising. If you haven't already registered for that, we've posted a link in the comment section to sign up. Lastly, I just want to remind everybody that the session today was recorded, so you will be receiving the recording along with Luke's slide deck by the end of the week. Thanks everyone again, and I will pass it off to Luke to say a final word.
Thanks everyone. As I mentioned before, we do have a special offer for nonprofit marketers during COVID-19. I know that this is a difficult time, and so if you are looking to experiment with landing pages at all over the next couple of months, I would highly encourage you to check it out. You can get 3 months for free if you mention that you're a nonprofit marketer and sign up before August 31st. Otherwise, please let me know if you have any questions. You can reach me on Twitter @LukeBailey, or I included my email on the previous slide, luke.bailey@unbounce.com. I'm happy to follow up with any of you, especially you, Karen.
All right, thanks so much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.
See ya.